following is a presentation of Learfield IMG College. From the Georgia Southern Sports Network, powered by Learfield IMG College.
Wings up, Eagle Nation! Touchdown, Georgia Southern!
This is Inside Eagle Nation, your all-access look into Eagle athletics.
Taking a look through all the other action in Georgia Southern athletics this past week. A lot of road action. A lot of teams hitting the old I-16 out of town.
Getting on the steel horse and taking us to parts north, south, west, wherever. Can't really go too much farther east.
Now let's return to the Learfield IMG College studios. Here are your hosts, Colin Lacy and Danny Reed.
That's a fact, Jack.
Another edition of Inside Eagle Nation, number 167, coming at you on a Monday night from Hanner Fieldhouse. Colin Lacy alongside the voice of the Eagles, Danny Reed. A Monday, and this week is going to be a fantastic week, at least for me. I don't know about you. You may say to go kick rocks.
Why is this going to be a fantastic week for you?
Because I actually get to see our friends.
Oh, yeah.
This week,
that's a good point.
Men's basketball and women's basketball are both at home. Women's basketball only playing on Saturday evening as they take on Georgia State. A little bit of revenge on the mind for Georgia Southern. But men's basketball plays South Alabama on Thursday, Troy on Saturday at home.
Big weekend.
So a doubleheader on Saturday for men's and women's basketball. But Georgia Southern, like back when the doubleheaders were the huge, Georgia Southern realizes it is physically impossible to have a 2-hour women's basketball game, a 30-minute buffer, and then start the men's game in more than 2 hours. I'm not good at math. That much I can do. There are some places around the league that didn't quite get that memo.
Maybe.
Yeah, South was one of them.
Yeah, we were there a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, when South women in Louisiana were doing their thing. You had a fantastic hour-long pregame.
One of the longest opening segments in the history of the Georgia Southern Sports Network.
Which is exactly what you want when you're by yourself.
Yeah, that too.
Bingo.
But I can remember a couple of times we had games at Savannah State and they were doubleheaders and they only put 2 hours in between. So I can remember the way that we had things structured before. Our opening segment was the entire fourth quarter of your game against Savannah State.
Right. We did that a couple of times. There was a couple places in conference. I know South was like that. There was somewhere else.
I don't know that anybody's been 2 hours. There have been some.
There have been some 2:15s.
There's been some 2:15s, some 2:30s. What we had this past weekend with the Cajuns, they had a women's game at 2.
Right.
We played at 7, which is
fantastic.
And Arkansas State's done that before too.
Right. Fantastic.
Hey, I'm all about it. I got to see Mike Hammett after ULM.
Oh, Mikey.
ULM played in the opening game against Louisiana. Saw Josh Bruner, Matt Sullivan, of course, Jay. Saw just about everybody.
Jay didn't see you, but...
Well, I just had to get close. Just to get close enough, that's all.
But this weekend on Saturday, women's basketball play at 1 o'clock against Georgia State, and then 3 hours in between, 4 o'clock tip-off for Georgia Southern men against Troy. Fantastic. It's wonderful.
This is how it was up until just a few years ago.
Right. Going back to the good old days.
Back to the good old
Well, at least the old days. But 3 games coming up, all inside Hanner Fieldhouse for Georgia Southern men's and women's basketball combined. We will dive into that a little bit later on. We'll catch up with JT Crabtree, the voice of the South Alabama Jaguars. Also catch up with Barry McKnight, the wonderful voice of the Trojans. And I get to see both of them this weekend. It's wonderful.
It's not just the fact that Barry is the wonderful voice of the Trojans. It's just that he has the wonderful voice.
That too.
And we were able to peel him away just momentarily from his duties
just
with
before
Trojan
he goes
Talks.
to Mama Goldberg's.
He's got that table set at Mama Goldberg's. He's got things to talk about with Coach Cross, Coach Rigby. Brent Jones is going to be on tonight, and that'll be something we can catch up with. Even more of a tie with Georgia Southern.
Man, what a time to be alive.
You're not fooling.
As we dive into everything Georgia Southern Athletic. What are we talking about?
This is episode 1. Would you say is
167?
Yeah, okay. So that's a lot of us doing this. When we start repeating, I feel like we're a lot older because we're not remembering what we're talking about.
I know, right?
And we're going to have to find a way to get Roger back and figure out if he's told stories that he hasn't told before. Maybe we'll get that back for football season. We really don't know the direction of this. It's more or less told by you because this is for you.
Right. And if you want to join the conversation, or conversation is what that word's supposed to sound like, or if you want to rather steer the conversation in a different direction, you can comment on Facebook Live. You can text us at 912-274-3607. You can tweet at GS Sports Network. Or as Ryan Chambers used to say, if you have a secret text line, you can do that too. But as we dive into everything Georgia Southern athletics this week, men's golf will open up the spring season at home with the Georgia Southern University course hosting the Thomas Sharkey Individual Collegiate Sunday and Monday of this coming week. So a week from today is when that one will be wrapping up, and we'll give you a full recap of it on next week's edition. But this is something, and we talked about it last year whenever Georgia Southern hosted this as well the last few years. Thomas Sharkey, former Georgia Southern golfer, a really, really good story and really nice of the Georgia Southern golf program, and we've talked about Carter Collins and the class that program has, but this just another edition of that class that they show.
If the Schenkel is the biggest event of the year, this one isn't too far behind just because of the meaning that's attached to it.
No doubt. But that will be next Sunday and Monday over at the Georgia Southern University course to honor Thomas Sharkey and remember him and his great addition to Georgia Southern athletics. But Georgia Southern men's tennis back in action on Saturday as they host Gardner-Webb at the Wallace Tennis Center. First serve will be at 1 p.m. just outside of Hanner Fieldhouse. Big weekend for Georgia Southern Rifle. Set a couple of program records. Had a new program record as team-wise for air rifle and the aggregate scores. Had the second best small bore score that they've ever posted as they rolled past VMI and then barely fell to number 13 Jacksonville State. Erin Ballard hit a career high for her third straight match in a row in small bore, and she took the gold with a 581. That's the second best program score in the history. She also took silver overall, scoring 1168 aggregate. That's the sixth best in program history. Ashley Judson won the silver for her 593, her sixth score of 590 plus this year. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, a little bit.
They will have a week off before a busy three-match weekend the following weekend, as that will be the first weekend of Georgia Southern softball as well. So they open up with a home tournament over at Eagle Field to officially ring in the Sharon Perkins era.
It's going to get really, really busy on campus here very soon, but
yes,
you could almost say that this week is the start of that because we've got our signing day special coming up on Wednesday. Georgia Southern football is going to look to add a couple of more members to the class. Remember, you had 20 that signed back in December. We'll get a chance to visit with Coach Helton, a lot of members of his staff, maybe even a couple of Eagles for that show 6 to 7:30. That will be open to the public. Doors will open to Bishop Fieldhouse at 5:30. You can come on in, get food, drink. You can speak with the members of the Georgia Southern coaching staff as we will recap everything that's gone on over these last few weeks. And it'll also be time to preview a little bit of spring ball that's coming up, I believe, sometime in March, and that schedule will be released here soon. You've also got, by the end of the week, we dive into a little bit of baseball. Going to be 2 weeks out from first pitch at that point for the first evening with the All-Stars in 4 years. Didn't do it 2 years ago because of COVID. Sid Bream will be in town to be the keynote speaker.
I'm so excited that you have to talk to Sid Bream. Like, that's the most excited I've been for a while.
Okay, I'll peel back the curtain a little bit. Just a couple days ago, had a meeting with Coach Hennon about the event, went through the list, and got to the point about the Sid Bream highlight reel.
Right.
So I'm already kind of...
I know the first one.
I'm kind of seething a little bit, but so Rodney says to Aaron and Haley, "Hey, we got to start with the slide, don't we?" I looked at him and said, "You realize how difficult this is for me right now?"
I want the entire Q&A to be about the slide.
It's not going to be Q&A. This is just going to be him speaking.
Oh.
But
can we add a Q&A about the slide?
Sid Bream was a Pirate.
Right.
So from that...
Yeah, you can't hate him completely.
So I'll just talk to the part of Sid that was a Pirate.
You just hate his busted knee.
I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this.
This is what you call poking the bear.
I don't want to... We've done this before.
We have.
You know what it's going to sound
like.
It's like, yes, 30 years, okay? 30 years. I was 7.
Okay. I love it.
And I've heard every conceivable call of that game, TV, radio, whatever.
Skip Carey's is the best.
It is.
Which
which
duh.
It overshadows Sean McDonough's on CBS because his call was outstanding as well.
You and I were listening to it a couple of weeks ago that we had brought it up, and I never I had heard the call before. I never realized it was Sean McDonough.
And I've heard the Pirate call once. I can't listen to it.
I don't know that I've heard the Pirate call.
I'd have to dig for it, but I've heard it once.
Huh. Was that Lanny Fratteri? Fantastic.
Yeah.
But as part of that evening with the All-Stars, coming up on Friday, February the 4th, there will be 4 new additions to the Mason Clements Wall of Fame. James Payne, Griffin Benedict, Sam Howard, Mike Tiddick. Those are 4 guys that you're probably thinking they were already there, to be honest.
It's a good way to look at it.
But like Griffin Benedict, I was kind of surprised that he wasn't already in, but obviously well-deserving. Spent time here from 2006 to 2009. He spent a long time in the Padres organization well after he got done playing as the bullpen catcher for the San Diego Padres and absolutely loved that job. But because of COVID, he got let go a couple of years ago. But Sam Howard, one of the more recent additions to the Wall of Fame, coming in recently. But Sam Howard now pitching for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Thankfully. that bullpen's shrinking over the last couple of years. He was really good last year before he hurt his knee, came back. Wasn't necessarily the same, but somebody that was used quite a bit during the 21 season.
And then James Payne played in 2001 and then 03 to 05, was one of the fastest human beings on the face of the planet and could hit a little bit. I mean, 407, not bad.
What I really like about this class is that it spans multiple eras. And most of it is Rodney Hennon, but the fact that the early part, and then you move into Griffin Benedict, who, by all accounts, one of the toughest players to ever play for Georgia Southern. We still see his dad, Bruce, every now and then, college basketball official. Mike Tiddick was a longtime hitting coach, now serving as a scout. And then you bring in Sam Howard, who threw one of the best games in Georgia Southern history with that shutout at Florida State in the 2014 NCAA tournament.
This is one, you talk about it spanning a couple of different eras, but it also pretty much hits every aspect of Georgia Southern baseball. You've got Sam Howard on the mound. You've got Griffin Benedict behind the plate. You've got James Payne at the plate, running the bases. And then you've got Mike Tiddick, which there's not a whole lot of assistant coaches that get put into Hall of Fames or Wall of Fames. Tiddick, 1,000% deserving for what he did for Georgia Southern baseball. Got to spend the last couple of years he was here with Tiddick as he got done in 2015. But it's Tiddick is very well deserving.
It'll be nice to catch up with him.
Yeah,
on Friday.
He is one that it's always a blast to catch up with Tiddick.
And the fact that we're only, at that point, we will be 2 weeks out from heading to Knoxville to take on number 17, Tennessee. And considering that the news coming out of Knoxville regarding their rotation isn't necessarily positive, but...
Oh, it's pretty positive.
Well, for Georgia Southern, but there's a pretty strong chance that we could see a former Eagle start one of those 3 games.
Oh, we will get to that plenty more.
But that's called a tease.
Oh. Getting back into Georgia Southern athletics with swim and dive, defeated North Florida and SCAD in the double dual meet. I like saying that, double dual meet.
Senior day.
In the first and only home meet of the year. It was senior day, obviously. Supposed to have a couple of other home meets, but they were canceled earlier on in the season because of COVID. But Marissa Santos began the day with an event-high 268 in the 3-meter dive. The 200-yard medley relay team would finish first as Emma Scrubs, Amy Honyak, Tori Rucker, and Abby Winham produced a time of 1 minute 48 seconds and 59 tenths. The fastest time this season for the team as they get ready for the CCSA Championships up in Lynchburg, Virginia on the 16th through the 19th. Georgia Southern women's tennis finally got their season started after a couple of COVID cancellations pushed it back, but started the season off in Clemson, South Carolina against the number 73 Tigers. They fell 7-0 to Clemson. As the schedule doesn't get a whole lot easier, they will head to Orlando on Sunday to face the number 10 team in the country in UCF. I talked about it a little bit earlier, but going to have the National Signing Day event coming up inside Bishop Fieldhouse. Event opens, or doors open, I should say, at 5:30. And then We will start our program 6 to 7:30, just like a normal Hail Southern Live. You can see it on Facebook Live, on YouTube Live, on gseagles.com. A lot of different ways to take it in. You can get your questions in that way, or come out to the event and there will be a microphone like usual, or you can come up and ask questions and it's not going to be a whole hour and a half long show of just you and Coach Helton talking. Going to get a couple of the new coaches, some of the new players in that are part of this class, but because you get the December signing day allows you to have January enrollees.
Right.
I'm going to have some of those January enrollees in, going to be able to talk to them, get to know the newest Eagles over at Bishop Fieldhouse on Wednesday.
And like we mentioned, we know that there were 20 guys that were signed in December. There's somewhere between 3 and 5 that could be added for Wednesday, but the benefit of the earlier class, which we've come to know, you can get your guys in, you can get them signed, and in the case of if they are early enrollees, you can get them onto campus, you can get them jump-started with their college careers. But in addition to visiting with Coach Helton again, I'm curious to see if he's put anything in his office, really any of those guys, because once they got here, it's pretty much get the ground running and then go recruiting, get to know the guys that you already have. But also to see how this staff is getting acclimated to a new situation, how Brian Ellis is fitting in back in his home state, how Will Harris is coming in after leading one of the most tenacious defenses in the country over the last few years in the secondary at Washington. How does he feel about getting a chance to do it his way with Richard Owens on the offensive line? We know he played in the NFL, was at South Alabama, served as the tight ends coach there. He's been at UAB where they had an outstanding rushing attack over the last couple of seasons. So we'll get a chance to visit with a lot of different people, a lot of different perspectives, and seeing how Georgia Southern is fitting into what we already know.
This is probably, and I was trying to think about this the other day, this may be one of the most exciting times in Georgia Southern football in recent memory that it's not in season. There was a lot of excitement whenever you're moving from FCS to FBS and joining the Sun Belt Conference, but I think this is right up there because there's so much change, there's so much new coming in that you're trying to figure out what this looks like now. And you know the traditions are still going to be there. Coach Helton has talked about he's not trying to take this and completely overhaul it. You've just got to make the necessary changes to continue that tradition.
Yeah, the last time we had something this significant change-wise in the football program, it would have been 2016, and we were lucky enough to be able to visit with all of those coaches, get to know their way of doing things. Look, I know it didn't go that well at the time, but now when you add the fact that the impending construction of the IPF is on the way, also with the Convocation Center, there's a lot more balls that are in the air, so to speak, and how Georgia Southern football fits into that framework is going to be a topic of conversation on Wednesday and going forward, as we should be able to visit with all of our assistant coaches throughout the rest of the offseason and leading into spring practice.
Going to be a lot of fun to figure out what it looks like on the field, but you will get the first taste of it coming up on National Signing Day on Wednesday. 6 to 7:30 will be the Hail Southern Live show all across network lines. You can see it you can hear it rather, on the Varsity app, and then watch on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, gseagles.com. A lot of different ways to take in the Hail Southern Live Signing Day special coming up on Wednesday. But transitioning over to Georgia Southern women's basketball, had a pretty good week on the court. Took on the Trojans of Troy on Thursday inside Hanner Fieldhouse. Fell 78-72, but that was a really, really good game. The third quarter was really good for Georgia Southern as well. After Troy got out to a 22-14 lead in the first quarter, where Georgia Southern did not shoot the ball well by any stretch of the imagination, just 25% shooting from the floor in the first quarter. Eagles really bounced back and got it back. They never took the lead in the second half, but got it to where they tied it 2 different times, and you felt like Georgia Southern was this close to getting over that hump. Couldn't quite get over that hump, but a 78-72 victory for Troy. It was a little bit of a nail-biting weekend for Troy. They went up to Georgia State and only won by 4 up on the third floor.
This league, it doesn't matter what your record is, especially right now, and we'll get to the men's side in just a moment, but there aren't really any teams that you can say that's the squad.
Yeah.
On the men's side, App's playing very well, but I'm not going to say they're head and shoulders above the rest. Yeah. And on the women's side, we know the Little Rock has had problems simply getting on the court. It does feel like there has been a shift in power, that Troy has kind of taken over as the pinnacle of this league program-wise. But when Georgia Southern and Troy on the women's side play, it is always a barn burner. I don't care that Troy was as successful as they were, even though Georgia Southern broke the losing streak last year in what was an outstanding game inside Hanner Fieldhouse. When those two get together, it is always going to be compelling basketball.
Move on to Saturday. Georgia Southern gets the victory over South Alabama, 77-69. South Alabama came out and kind of threw the first punch in the first quarter, led by 3 and then led by 5 at the break. The third quarter was all Georgia Southern. They outscored South Alabama by 9. And South Alabama, they were a good shooting team. They came out and knocked down 11 threes. Yeah, so, yeah.
Been there.
And so you're having to deal with, and they were coming from a lot of different people. You had 3 threes from Jalen Powell. You know she can do it. She sent their game against Georgia State on Thursday into overtime with a 3 at the buzzer. But you had 3 from Mahogany Vaught, who you know she can shoot it. She doesn't shoot it all that often, but knocked down 3 or 4 from long range. Had a couple of different Jaguars with 1 apiece, and Janelle Jones, who never shoots threes. Dee Hamer and Destiny Samuel. Samuel doesn't really shoot threes, even though she shot 6 in the game. Only made 1, but there were just a lot of threes, uncharacteristic threes for South Alabama, but Georgia Southern able to overhaul that and played really well in the third quarter. 53% from the floor, 2 of 5 from behind the arc. Had really good games, and 2 different Eagles, or rather 1 Eagle and double-double with 19 points and 17 rebounds. Taryn Ward, it's the most rebounds since Danielle Spencer had 17 against Jacksonville back in 2013. You had 3 different Eagles in double-figure rebounds. Maya Banks with 11, Maya Burns with 11, 14 points for Janiah Lovehill, 17 points for Simone James. You had a lot of contribution from a lot of different people, and you go back to that game against Troy on Thursday, there were 3 different Eagles that had double-doubles. The first time, and Chad Jackson was trying to go back and look and see when the last time 3 Eagles had a double-double in the same game, and it hadn't been done in at least 20 years when the records go back to, but Maya Banks was outstanding, 15 points, 13 rebounds, 8 on the offensive glass against Troy, 10 points, 11 rebounds for Taryn Ward, so she had 2 straight double-doubles. Taya Gibson with 13 points and 10 rebounds as well. Did a really, really good job this weekend for Georgia Southern. But they split the weekend 77-69, the victory over South Alabama. And then on Saturday upcoming, it is Georgia Southern, Georgia State for the second time in 2 weeks. Fell to Georgia State just 2 weeks ago, 58-56 on that crazy last-second play that we've talked about plenty already. But that'll be a 1 o'clock tip-off against the Georgia State Panthers. It'll be a whiteout inside Hanner Fieldhouse. You got your white ready to go?
Come on. Who are you talking to?
I was going to say, if not, you got to go see William at Southern Exchange.
Hey.
That too.
No, but considering that 1, Georgia Southern came back from 18 down in that first game, and 2, only to see it end on a buzzer beater where it could have maybe not happened, probably shouldn't have happened, possession, timeout, steal, it all went down. But it just adds, it stokes the coals a little bit more.
Yeah. No doubt. And Georgia State has been playing a lot better as of late. Still 8-10, 2-4 in the league on the women's side. They fell to Troy, as we mentioned, by 4. But after they defeated Georgia Southern, they defeated South Alabama last Thursday. Took overtime again after Merrill hit that 3 at the buzzer. But Georgia Southern, Georgia State, a 1 o'clock tip-off, and that will lead into the double dip with Georgia Southern men's basketball on Saturday, 4 o'clock against Troy. But first you got to take on South Alabama on Thursday for men's basketball. But had a pretty good weekend in your own right down in the Louisiana, down in the Bayous after a 50-45 victory against ULM. It wasn't necessarily the prettiest thing in the world, but got it done. And then a 66-65 victory over the Raging Cajuns.
Last week, when we had discussion about basketball, neither of us had won a game. We were 0-3 last week.
Right.
This week, we get 3 out of 4. And you go on a road trip when you're 1-5 in conference play, you're immediately questioning everything.
Yeah.
Why aren't you scoring? Why aren't you rebounding? Why are turnovers so high? Where's defense? At various points, some of those have been good, but despite performing well in certain areas, the losing was taking place because Georgia Southern wasn't able to overcome the things that were costing them. Now, even though it was a sweep, the ULM game on Thursday, an artist wouldn't have painted that thing. It was not good in any way, shape, or form. Neither team could shoot, but thankfully ULM struggled even more so. They were just 29% from the field. Cam Bryant came back after missing the 2 games for last weekend. He was the only Eagle in double figures. He had 12 off the bench. Also had 8 rebounds. Trey Cobbs had 8 rebounds as Georgia Southern won that battle. At the end, though, they were still down with about 3 minutes left. Bryant's 3 put them ahead for good. And then Andre Saversoff, 47 seconds to play. He hadn't made a shot all game. He went into that possession 0 for 5. Lined up and shot as graceful a 3 as I think I've seen him shoot. It didn't even touch iron, dropped right through the net. Grew the lead to 5. A couple of possessions later, Georgia Southern cinched a 50-45 win. And then being able to go to the Cajun Dome on Saturday, Louisiana did a lot of things that typically wouldn't signal a victory on the other side. 25 points off of 23 Georgia Southern turnovers. The Cajuns also scored 16 second chance points. They had 14 offensive rebounds. Georgia Southern had a lot of trouble dealing with that Cajun press, especially in that second half. But it was a close game the entire game. The biggest lead was 8 points. Georgia Southern had built a 5-point lead, but with 3 minutes left, Eagles were trailing by 8. That was after the Cajuns got a couple of easy buckets in a row, and they were uncontested. You had 2 dunks and a layup. Eagles were getting some wires crossed with the zone. To finish the way that they did, though, 10-1 run over the last 2 minutes, 14 seconds. Elijah McCadden scored the final 7 points. He made Georgia Southern's only 3 of the second half. That was also the only 3 that he attempted all game. He drove the lane. His layup tied the game at 64, missed his free throw, but on the other end, when Kobe Julian went 1 of 2, Elijah, after a timeout, gets fouled with 17 seconds left. He makes his 2 free throws for the 1-point lead. Breinberg calls his final timeout after that, and you had to wonder exactly where the Cajuns were going to go with the basketball because Julian led them with 19 points, but Jordan Brown, the 5-star transfer out of Arizona, who's so talented, he's had to deal with a shoulder injury, also been knocked out with a concussion at some point this year. Ultimately, the ball was going to find his hands. It took them until 5 seconds left to start their possession, and by the time Michael Thomas threw the wraparound pass, it hit Brown in the shoulder, rolled free on the baseline. Prince Toyambi knocks it out front, and McCadden's able to dribble it as the time is expiring, and it was extremely emotional watching those guys rush the court because you could see how much it meant to them. You could see how they grinded their way through it. You could see how tough things had been over the first 6 games of conference play. And to think back for a game that had ended like that on the men's side. I mean, a year ago, they were down 6 with about 1:20 left against USC Upstate. Think back to the Mike Hughes game at Appalachian State in 2016. Eagles were down 8 that game with about 2.5 left before he went crazy. Then the 4-point play happened, and Georgia Southern won that game 101-100. It hasn't happened very much where they've erased that kind of deficit that quickly, but in conference play, more often this year maybe than any other year, it's going to come down to the final 5 minutes of the game. It's going to be 1 or 2 possessions, and whoever can close that game is going to win that game. In Troy's case, I know they're coming in 5-3 in conference. You could convince yourselves they could be 7-1 because they didn't close 2 of their games. And we're going to talk to JT in a minute. They're 5-3. He could probably convince himself that they're a 7-1 team at minimum. Definitely one of the most talented rosters in the league. I'm a big fan of Manning and Chandler. We just saw him 3 weeks ago down in Mobile. But on Georgia Southern's side, to win that game, that Cajun game, the way that they did with so much that was working against them, that ranked up there as far as being able to pull one out, especially on the road.
I was pretty happy with not just be able to watch the game because you guys had an 8 o'clock Eastern tip and women's basketball was well done before then, and so got to sit at home and watch that one on ESPN Plus. Had Dan McDonald on the call, and it was pretty fantastic. But it really made me laugh because every time you would go to each end of the floor, one end of the floor I'd see you at the top, the other end I'd see Jay at the top. I'm like, hey, this is like best of both worlds.
This is the first time all year that I was bench side. It only happened once all of last year because of COVID. You were either up in the rafters or you're up on platforms.
I do think it's really funny, though, when you're bench side, and I say it's funny. It's funny when I'm watching it, but I know I'm the same way. you're having to dodge not only referees, but you're having to dodge Coach Berg. And so to sit there and look at the top and you're up there.
Quick story before JT comes on. When I first started doing basketball, Chris Blair was still around. Mm-hmm. He hadn't made the move to LSU yet. And he remembered watching the Ole Miss game when we went there in November of 2015, and he asked me after the game, "Why are you standing up?" Blair, I'm not tall. I can't see. So I was standing up a good bit because sometimes it's the officials, sometimes it's Coach Berg because he likes to wander maybe a little bit past the coach's box, but Bob Marlin for the Cajuns.
Coach's boxes don't mean anything in this league.
Well, you don't know. But, yeah, when I'm bench side, I'm a smaller fella. So, yeah, I'm going to need to stand and contort my body so I can see what's going on so I can tell the people who can't see things.
Men's basketball got the sweep of the Louisiana schools 50-45 on Thursday at ULM. 66-65 the victory over the Cajuns on Saturday. They look ahead to the homestand against the Alabama schools. And for the insight, the scoop, the everything, welcome in our buddy JT Crabtree, the voice of the South Alabama Jaguars. What's up, bud?
What's going on, guys? Good to see y'all.
I feel like we just did this.
We did 3 weeks ago.
That's what I was saying. You texted me. I was like, was that just on there? But cool. I'll come back on. That's fun.
You look at this team, 15-6, 5-3 in conference play, and something that we talked about 3 weeks ago leading into the first matchup for Georgia Southern and South Alabama was, were you going to have Turbo Jones? It ended up you didn't have him back that weekend. It was the next weekend when you got him back. What has really been the difference now that you have him back on your roster?
We have a PG. We have a point guard for the first time just about all season. You know, he played the first game against Spring Hill, did okay, and then he broke his foot at Wichita in game 2 and hadn't played since. And so really Manning and Chandler have been the point guards so far this year. And so now he's back, and he's a true pass-first facilitator. He does some good things defensively. I think he's tried a little too much on the offensive side, personally trying to score the last couple of games. He didn't have a great game on Saturday against Troy. He played 20 minutes and got 2 points and had 2 more turnovers than he had assists. So not his best effort last time out. But I think having him back, you've seen a more fluid offense of what we wanted to do at the start of the season. You see Chandler being able to move away from the ball a lot more. You see Charles Manning able to play in some space without the ball, which is where he's the most dangerous. You look at the assist and turnover numbers since Turbo's been back, they've dropped the turnovers have dropped a 1.5 turnovers per game less since Turbo's come back. Manning himself, since Turbo's been back, has been plus 10 in assist to turnover ratio, which you think to when he was running as the point guard, he was averaging like between 7 and 9 turnovers a game, but he had to because he had to have the ball in his hands so often. And so now being able to play away from the ball more and find some openings has really helped him out. I'm really curious to see how we look against a team that we've already seen this year that hasn't seen Turbo. And so coming up with you guys on Thursday, I'm really curious to see how much of an adjustment it is, not only from us, but from you guys, how y'all play against us with a new guy probably in the starting lineup coming up on Thursday.
The last 5 games, it's only been 3 weeks, but looking at some of the numbers, reading some boxes, 1, it looks like you've ramped up the zone a little bit, and 2, you're killing people with fast break points.
Yeah, that's true. We have definitely mixed in the 2-3 zone a lot more. We're still getting beat pretty bad on the glass, especially last time out against Troy. And so the 2-3 is we're saying, okay, you're not going to beat us down low. We're going to do our best that we can, and if you hit some threes, whatever. That's really the mantra of the team that it was when we had that great run at the end of the 1920 season going in the pandemic. Was we switched exclusively 2-3 zone. We didn't care if you hit 18 threes on us. We're not going to give up any points in the paint. And it's kind of trending a little bit more that way right now. They want to play man. They want to press. But just the guys that we have seem to play better in zone. And so we've been doing that a little bit more lately. The transition game you're talking about, I think that is a direct correlation to having Turbo back. That's what we've wanted to do all season. And the dude's namesake, he's quick. He wants to push the ball himself. He's pretty impressive when he gets out in a full sprint. I think for the first time all year, Saturday we saw him in a full one end to the other sprint on a fast break himself, and he scored points. But I think his speed and the athleticism of Manning and Franklin and Chandler as well, I think have played really well. And please excuse Pepper barking up front. He can hear me and he wants to be on the podcast. So there's a shout out.
Come on now. Talk about JJ Chandler a little bit, and he kind of seems like this year he has been almost the second fiddle to Charles Manning. It's been Manning and Chandler. When you're talking about Manning, he comes up in conversation, but he's not the focal point. But he's somebody watching not only the Georgia Southern game, but the game that I got to do for you, being able to see him. He's pretty impressive and had a really impressive number against Georgia Southern last time out, and it's a stat that doesn't get a whole lot of publicity as far as basketball is concerned, but the plus minus, you use it in hockey a lot, but he was plus 15 against Georgia Southern.
Yeah, he's good, man. And like you said, he gets overlooked a lot because you have a guy like Charles Manning who's second in the conference in points per game, and even a guy like Javon Franklin with his highlight dunks. You know, he sometimes is the bigger name over Chandler sometimes. But JJ is just so steady, man. He's so consistent. He scored at least 10 points in 18 straight games. He had 20 points last time out, but 18 of them came in the second half. It was a loss on Saturday, but it would have been a lot worse without JJ's performance. He's just steady. And we got a real big scare on Saturday where he had a non-contact injury where he pivoted and then he turned, he jumped, he landed awkwardly on his knee, and he crumbled. And he immediately held his left knee, and we're thinking, oh, my God, if we lose JJ, that could be the end of this run that we want to make. Because, yes, you want to have Manning, you want to have Franklin, you want to have everybody else. But really, JJ's consistency night in and night out, and just the ability that he knows his role of, I'm going to get the ball when they give it to me. When I get it, I've got to make the most of it. He's done a really good job, really since conference play started, of not trying to do too much with the ball, not trying to make some kind of crazy highlight play, although he did at ULM try and throw an alley-oop off the glass, and that did not work. Richie Riley said he thought he was in the NBA All-Star game for a minute. But, aside from that, he's pretty consistent. I think that's what's been the key for him, is that he doesn't try and do too much. He's pretty solid defensively too. He's really been, it's a zoo over here, man.
Not the first time we've experienced this with you.
Yeah, I was going to say, at least it's not like the summer Zoom during COVID where the cat was attacking me and then my wife was being attacked by a raccoon in the backyard.
That's right.
And now the cat's eating something. I don't know what is happening. What are you eating? That's an electrical cord. Don't eat that.
Going to turn into the cat on National Lampoons.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Welcome to Jag Nation, guys. Yeah, here we go.
Oh, there she goes.
There's the cat. You brought up we'll bring it back here. You brought up Gerard Franklin a little bit earlier. He's 12-7 on the season, but since conference play began, 15-9. He's top 5 in blocks and steals. How's he made the jump?
Yeah, I mean, the dude just wanted an opportunity. You know, he was at Auburn for 2 years. It just never got a shot. And what's crazy to think is that this is a guy that hasn't contributed any meaningful minutes since JUCO, since he was at Holmes JUCO. And he's finally getting an opportunity, and that's all he wanted. He just wanted a chance to go out and play and show why he was the Arkansas 6A Player of the Year out of high school. You know, he's a good ball player. And what's so impressive about him is that he can defend everywhere. He's not just a post guy. He stands at 6'7", but he can run with a guard. You know, he can stretch out there. He doesn't shoot like a guard, but he's done a very good job of, he knows his role is to eat up time in the paint, make sure nobody scores anything easy over the top of him, just contest everything, and get a highlight big-time dunk or a putback every now and then to fire up the guys. He's been kind of the adrenaline rush for the team this year. Is you don't get the big threes here and there this year with this team because we're not a great three-point shooting team. He provides the big-time plays and the momentum plays that we need when we need to make a comeback or try and stretch something out.
When you talk about big-time plays and momentum plays, the thing I think of is watching your videos after the game of you and Joe calling the game. Is Joe McNulty making the trip with you?
No, he's not. He'll be in the studio, but he won't be on the trip. So he's South grad himself, just like me. He's he turns 26 in about a month. Dude knows his basketball. He loves his Jags, man, and he'd travel to every game if he could. But we always make the joke that it's a big time game when Joe McNulty's on the road. So I guess this week's not a big time game.
Well, if you've got the camera
Joking, of course.
on you, is there a camera in the studio on him whenever stuff happens?
There's not. We haven't thought about that. That's a good point. We could hook something up like that.
See, Dr. Erdman?
Yeah. Hold on. Let me make a call real quick. Excuse me, guys. Yeah. We need to buy one GoPro, please.
That's all. Just one GoPro.
You know, the last time that you came to Statesboro for basketball, you were a little hobbled.
Oh God. It was that trip. It was that trip. I forgot.
Your ankle was as big as my knee when you came here.
Oh, man, I forgot about that. And I'm rocking a sweet court burn from 3 weeks ago at Lafayette, too, because I made the dumb decision of playing in the manager's basketball game, and I will never do that again.
Did you score?
No, I had 2 steals and assists. I was 0 for 1 shooting and a sweet court burn for diving after a loose ball. So I played baseball growing up. Give me a dirt scrape all day long because this court burn sucks, man. But to your point, last year, and I'm not even a clumsy person. This makes me sound like I am. Last year, like 2 days before we're hitting the road to come to you guys, I fell down the stairs at my in-laws' house, and my toe took the brunt of it. And yeah, it was ugly, man. I thought I'd shattered my foot. And I asked our trainer when I drove to Statesboro on the foot, which probably wasn't the smartest decision, then walked around Savannah for the next day. But I asked our trainer and said, what do you think this is? And he said, well, can you bend it? I'm like, not really. So can you walk on it? Yeah. It's turf toe. You'll be fine. So I can check that box. Turf toe. I've had it. It's not fun. Don't recommend it.
Between turf toe and court burn, that you got right there.
Right here, man. What else am I going to do, man? Like, I'm not going to sit in the hotel room all day.
No, especially not when you come to Statesboro.
No, I got to go. That's what I got to figure out what I'm going to do when I come see you guys this week. Where are we going?
I don't know, but I promise you will not get court burn wherever we're going.
Thank goodness, because who knows what's on the floor at Hanner over the years.
That's a really really shrewd point.
Yikes.
I never thought about that.
Yeah. JT, appreciate
it. Can't be as long as we don't have any smoke delays like we had at ULM.
Wait, hang on, time out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Smoke delay.
You guys didn't hear about this?
Yeah, I saw this.
I missed this.
Yeah. All right, Colin. So we tip off, or before tip off actually, ULM does the old school 1x1 starter intros out of the tunnel 1x1, and as they come out, they shoot smoke down the tunnel at good old Fant Ewing. Well, you guys know Fant Ewing probably doesn't have the best circulation air-wise in the place, and so we are ready for tip-off, and it looks like the 13th hole at St. Andrews on a dewy morning for the Open Championship. It is. We had to stop. We were ready to go, and then the official said, "No, we can't play in this." And actually, Richie Riley asked the folks at the scores table, "Hey, is this normal? Does this normally happen?" They said, "No, it's the first time. Probably be the last time too." So I would agree. I don't know if they've done it. Danny, did they do it? Did they do it last weekend?
They did, but it wasn't as bad.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess it's still there, but
I think Coach Vining. Said something to him, and whenever Coach Vining says something down there, you just kind of do it.
Gotcha. Yeah. So as long as we don't have any smoke delays, as long as the lights turn on before kickoff, and as long as I don't burn my legs, then we'll be fine.
2 out of 3 is not bad.
I mean, it's the best we can do.
JT, appreciate the time. Looking forward to seeing you this week, bud.
You bet it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, man.
Oh, JT Crabtree. It doesn't get a whole lot better than that.
I'd forgotten that Hancock went and he lost power for the
I did too.
game.
I did too. I guarantee you didn't.
That's the night that Kane Womack went out and I think took pictures and signed autographs because they were waiting around for about an hour and a half or something.
Yeah. And that was a game that almost didn't happen.
Yeah, because Alcorn State, no trainers.
Right.
Yeah.
See, this is the kind of stuff people don't see. And there's probably a reason for it.
That's why you got to tune in.
Oh, man alive.
Next guy has some good stories, too.
He does. But before we get to Barry, you were obviously there, Georgia Southern and South Alabama last time, 3 weeks ago. Your biggest takeaway from the Jags?
They are extremely athletic, and I would say it's a race between them and Louisiana for the most talented roster in the league. Depth-wise, I think the Cajuns may have them because with South, they might send in 9 guys throughout the game, but Richie Riley is going to play 6.5, 7 guys. I say 6.5 because sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 7. A year ago it was 6 because of their injuries, and he really cut the rotation down. But when they're cooking the way that they want to play, getting in transition and locking you up with their zone, it is very tough to make a first shot against their defense because of how many problems they give you with their length. And it really frustrated Georgia Southern. I would say 35 of the 40 minutes, the Eagle offense just couldn't do anything. The 5 minutes that they did in the second half, thankfully it happened because they came back from 13 down and took the lead with under 6 minutes to play. But they've just got so much firepower with Manning handling the basketball or playing off the ball, with Chandler doing the same. Now with Turbo Jones back, we actually saw him when he was at Auburn. That was his collegiate debut 2 years ago down at Auburn Arena. And then with Javon Franklin, he didn't play that game. He's also from Auburn. But for somebody that stands 6'7", 225, he looks more slender than that, but he plays more powerfully and more athletically than that. He is the guy that should get talked a lot more about when you're referring to South. Chandler and Manning are the two, but Franklin should be an all-conference guy from what he has done, especially since getting into league play. He's been phenomenal the first 8 games of league play for them.
Again, Georgia Southern and South Alabama will get the weekend started Thursday, a 7 o'clock tip-off inside historic Hanner Fieldhouse. We now turn the attention to the Saturday matchup for Georgia Southern. It's the Trojans of Troy. The first time you're going to see the Trojans.
We're going to try this one again.
Yeah, right. I say we are going to see them because I'm so happy again. We get to see everybody this week. I get to see everybody.
Well, we did get to play the first time. It wasn't because of COVID, because you weren't going to be able to be there.
Right.
And so we couldn't go to Trojan Arena, we couldn't go to Hooks, we couldn't go to Sisters, we couldn't do any of that.
Yeah, so we welcome in the voice.
Sylvia at Mossy Grove was off that weekend, so Danny and Colin said, we're not doing it again.
We welcome in the voice of the Troy Trojans and Barry McKnight, and we were going to start with how you're having to recover not seeing Mossy Groves in a while, but I think Barry's kind of picked you up on that.
Yeah, no question about that. That is an often occurrence for me. Mossy Grove is the must-do for these guys. At Sylvia, the server, she thinks Danny does a great impersonation of me, so she always asks to have their table whenever the Georgia Southern radio crew rolls into town.
She remembered that from, I think it was 4 years before.
Yeah.
That really surprised me.
Yeah, that was the best.
Well, it was spectacular in how bad it was, is what she told me. I don't know it,
The best part is you were doing it. She's like, "Oh, are you doing Mr. Barry?" And then about 30 minutes later, Barry actually walks in.
Yes,
it wasn't even planned, and that was pretty
17,
fantastic.
That's right.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. It's not an upset that I walk into Mossy Grove. Believe me, that happens on a regular basis.
Barry, take us into this Troy team. We talked about it a little bit earlier. The game for Georgia Southern and Troy when it was supposed to be at Trojan Arena a couple of weeks ago because of COVID concerns. That one got postponed. When you look at what this Troy team under Scott Cross is this year, what's the biggest thing that stands out?
Well, the buy-in as much as anything else. You guys have seen, even though you didn't see them in Troy this year, you'll see them Saturday. You've seen the Scott Cross team before in this league, and you know when he's got it going on what that team looks like. And finally here at Troy, it looks like what he wants it to look like. It's the buy-in. Troy has 15 guys on scholarship. 14 of them play extended minutes. The Trojans come at you in waves. Just about everybody plays. Everybody gives 7, 8, 9 minutes of absolute effort, particularly on the defensive end, and then somebody else comes in. It's interesting because we just got done with a win at home against South Alabama, and South Alabama is extremely talented. The top 6 players in the league in minutes per game, 3 of them are from South Alabama. To illustrate, Troy doesn't have a single player in the top 30 in the Sun Belt Conference in minutes per game. I think Duke Dean or FEODG average about 24 minutes a game, maybe. And that's the high water mark for Troy. Everybody shares the minutes. Everybody shares the basketball. Everybody shares the responsibilities. It's not an extraordinarily talented, physically athletic team, but it's coached really, really well, and they will flat get after you on the defensive end.
Yeah, the way that the minutes are balanced is something that I've noticed about what Coach Berg has done this year, playing mostly 9 to 10 guys, but it's between about 24 to 27 minutes per game for everybody. There's not too much of a deviation from those numbers. But one thing that seems to stand out for Troy, it's the depth in the front court. And we just saw Louisiana last weekend with Akuba and Brown, 2 6'11" guys that sometimes play together and can make things impossible in the paint. But watching multiple games with you guys, the depth in the front court is something that nobody else in this league has.
Well, the depth in the front court is something that we have not had in a long time. If you're asking me the biggest specific individual tangible difference besides just the culture and the depth of this team, it has been the depth on the front court. And it's interesting because Troy has a guy named Nate Shimanga, who's a 6'10" freshman who's been battling a wrist injury all year long. He's a 3, maybe a 2, a shooting guard or a small forward at 6'10". He's very skilled, but and he started the first 11 games, but he's not been able to not been able to be as productive as he wants because of the wrist injury. You'll notice he has to shoot free throws left-handed. But, when the Trojans started this season, the front line went 6'9" with Odigi, 6'9" with Zay Williams, and 6'10" with Shimanga on the outside. It was the biggest lineup in the Sun Belt Conference and the biggest lineup that Troy has ever had. Since then, with Shimanga's injury issues, and he's not played a ton of minutes lately, it's still the biggest individual factor for this team. Now, you don't have Nick Stampley having to play 27 minutes as a 6'4", 6'5" post player. And he's been playing and he's been effective, but he hasn't been asked to do that nearly as much as he has in the past. That has been a huge difference for the Trojans. It's just physically down low. They match up so much better than they have in the recent past.
Talk a little bit more about that culture. We've become fans of Scott Cross from his time at UT Arlington, now transferring over to Troy. What does that culture really look like, what he has really brought to this Trojan team?
Well, it's what they call "take the stairs." It's his big hashtag, and that's not the Dustin Kearns "take the stairs." Scott Cross actually had it first here at Troy, where you don't take shortcuts. Literally, when we are in the hotel, when we check into a hotel, I've got a suitcase, I've got a backpack, I've got a big crate of equipment. Nobody takes the elevators, including me. I'm on the 5th floor, the 6th floor. You got to take a deep breath and go up because there's no shortcuts. The culture looks like you want to be he always believes the toughest team will win. If Troy is not the first one on the floor after a loose basketball, that shows up in film study the next day. And they take pride in that, particularly the defensive side of things. The culture is such that everybody shares responsibilities on the defensive end. And I keep bringing up the defensive end because that is so critical to what he does. If you don't play defense, if you don't commit to defense, you don't play. It's a much tougher, less entitled atmosphere than his, been around, certainly here before. And it took a little while to get there. This year's team probably exemplifies that about as well as it can be exemplified, at least at this point of the season.
You have a stockpile of forwards, but you also have a stockpile of Dukes.
We have 2 Dukes. We have 2 Williamses. It's definitely difficult. We have an Odiji, we have a Ryfan, and we have a Shamanga. This is not a broadcaster's dream, to be sure, without a question. Yeah, the two guards that you referred to, one of them is Duke Dean. He's a second-year freshman, played last year at Panola, and he's the best shooter we've got, but he's 5'9". When he's able to free himself up on the outside, obviously it frees up things on the inside that much more. He didn't play against South Alabama with a bit of an ankle injury. The other one is Duke Miles. And Miles, of course, last year was really good as a freshman. He's out of Montgomery. Miles is a different player. He can shoot it pretty well, but mostly he's got a great basketball IQ. He's a facilitator. He scored 22 the other night to really key the win against South Alabama back at Trojan Arena. But he sets up other people. He's really, really good at penetrating and kicking the ball out. Plus, he's also, quite good defensively. Duke Dean shoots the ball really well. Tough kid at 5'9", plays with a chip over his shoulder. Defensively, he takes a lot of chances just because he knows he can't go chest up against a lot of people one-on-one on the outside. He's not big enough for that, but he's a risk taker defensively. He gets a lot of steals, gets his hand on a lot of basketballs. They're same name, but different style of guard.
You touched on it a little bit earlier. It's not necessarily the most physically gifted team that Troy has had, but the toughness. How do you balance with this team being a tough team without having to be the banging for 40 minutes in a game?
Well, the way that Troy gets it done is not beautiful. It's not beautiful basketball. For instance, against South Alabama, we played them twice this week and split. They are so much more fluid than the Trojans are. They're very athletic, very physically talented. So the approach from Troy is to muddy the game up, to be physical. There were a lot of fouls called, to be, first on the floor for a loose basketball, to play chest up against Gerard Franklin and some of those talented guys inside. Troy does not want a free-flowing back-and-forth game against anybody, even though Troy does have great depth. What they want is to be able, again, to get your chest into somebody, to rebound the basketball, to contest every shot. The closeouts have always got to be strong against a perimeter shooter. It's a way that the Trojans have to really make a game ugly, but it's still very disciplined in what they do.
There are some ways where it seems like that is somewhat of a departure from those Scott Cross teams at UT Arlington. We always associated an up-tempo style with them, a lot of threes, a lot of pressing. Something I did notice, though, maybe trying to marry the two, it seemed like you did use a little bit more backcourt pressure in that Saturday game, and I'm guessing that when you've got 4,000 Trojan fans instead of 4,000 Jaguar fans, it makes it a little bit easier to get into something like that.
Well, we felt like we had to do it because, again, they're so very athletic. You want to make them take as much time as you can before they get into their half-court offense, because when they run their plays, they've got guys who can just jump over people out there. But, yeah, the fan experience on Saturday was huge for that win. That was one of the reasons why you hated like the Dickens not to be able to have Georgia Southern back at Trojan Arena and Georgia State back at Trojan Arena when it showed up on the schedule, because at that point we were first in the league and the crowds were really good and they really had gotten off to a good start in Sun Belt play. We had so many promotions around that one. So this is one that has been circled for the Trojans. Really thought we had a good opportunity against the Eagles back at Trojan Arena. That's not going to happen. So therefore, these two coming up, the Georgia swing for Troy, is going to be critically important. Those games are definitely circled.
What's the biggest thing in this matchup? It seems like the last couple of years, it's been some really interesting games between Georgia Southern and Troy. What's the biggest part of this series from the Troy side?
Well, Jake Alsmiller has graduated. To me, that's the biggest part.
So has Wesley Person.
So, yeah, well, the issue, as always, with Georgia Southern at Georgia Southern is dealing with the unique environment as much as anything. You've got it feels like every Eagle fan is on each shoulder. The noise is big, the compactness of the experience. it's difficult to get used to, and it's unique in this league, and it's a good kind of unique as well. Also, just the talent of the team. We have seen go through there Ike Smith and Tookie Brown and, some of the really, really talented players that have come through that program, the really, really emotional players, that feed off of that crowd. Therefore, one of the keys, I think, for Troy in this game is going to be to try their best to take that crowd out of it. Got to get off to a good start, something the Trojans seemingly have never done at Hanner. But to me, that's still very important. Plus, everything that Troy tries to do on offense ultimately comes through Efeodigi. He is a 6'9" player, a transfer from UTEP, the most physical post player that we've had since Jordan Bernardo, but he's a different kind of player than Jordan. He gets doubled a lot on the post. He either has to take it in very decisively. What he's really been working on is getting it out of there once the double team comes down. He is, I think, third on the team in assists right now. So a lot of the offense flows through Odigi. He got in early foul trouble against South Alabama down in Mobile and was not effective. And that, and for all intents and purposes, kind of cooked Troy's goose in that game.
We'll have to try to keep people off of Barry's shoulders this weekend.
Those are lucky people.
It does feel that way, and I cannot stress that enough. You go to places in this league like in Lafayette where the arena's too big, or you go places where where the crowd is really not in effect. I guarantee you, everybody in this league, every coach in this league has to take into account, just the fact that it feels like you are in a cauldron at Hanner. It's hard to hear. It's hard to communicate. It's hard once Georgia Southern gets rolling to try to get that stopped because the crowd's rocking. You remember last year when Stampley, he had a tooth knocked out in the game down at Georgia Southern. He wanted to come back in the ball game. Couldn't let him do it because, he didn't have a tooth and all that. He ended up having to have surgery on it. He wanted to come back in there because he wanted to shut up the Georgia Southern fans. It's a big deal. And, we can be cavalier about it and all that. But playing Georgia Southern in Hanner is an experience that no other venue in this league offers, and you better be ready for it.
Barry, appreciate the time. Looking forward to being able to actually get to catch up with some of our friends this weekend. I'll get JT on Thursday, Barry on Saturday. There's not a whole lot more you can ask for in life, right?
I'm looking forward to it as well, gentlemen, as always.
Thanks, Barry.
Barry, appreciate the time. Oh, Barry McKnight. I think I say this every week, but he's a treasure.
Let him just narrate random things.
I think he should be the permanent book on tape voice. I don't know that there's a monopoly on that industry, but there should be.
I appreciate the nod, him talking about Sylvia at Mossy Grove, which when we go to Troy, we get a chance to go out and eat. That's a guarantee.
Yeah. We indoctrinated Aaron and Eric whenever we went for baseball.
That's right. He was down there last year.
So it was the four of us, and sadly, Barry didn't walk in as you were doing your...
Well, I feel like we needed to be tucked away for him to walk in. We were tucked away that night in 17.
Barry and Jerry are two of the local legends in Troy, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
But you're not far behind in Troy there, sir. Because I promise you, whenever you walked into Mossy Grove, Sylvia knew exactly who you were.
No, she didn't realize it until she took her orders because she saw the Georgia Southern stuff, and then she looked at me and said, "Oh, you're the one that does the Mr. Barry voice, aren't you?"
Yep.
And then, that's me.
Eric was looking around like, what did we just walk into?
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Eric likes to say really good.
Yeah. And then was it you and Eric stayed around to listen to the ghost stories while Aaron and I pointed the card toward the road?
Yeah, because she tried to show us in one of the pictures.
Yeah, and I said, no, thank you, I'm good.
She said that she kept pointing to a specific spot in the picture where if you looked hard enough, you could see the outline of a ghost.
Yeah, and it was about right where we were standing. Well,
yeah.
Y'all were standing.
Well, they do that intentionally.
Well, you have fun with that.
It was fun. It was good.
Yeah, you and Eric have fun with that. I was in the car.
Yeah,
pointed the nose toward the road.
This one has a thing about ghosts
and
the supernatural. And
do not do it.
The paranormal and all that.
No, sir.
Don't hold it against him. It's
Nope.
okay.
I don't care if you hold it against me or not. Could not care less. But you look at 3 games coming in Hanner Fieldhouse this weekend. Saturday, 1 o'clock tip-off for Georgia Southern women against Georgia State. Men's basketball will get it going on Thursday, 7 o'clock the tip-off for South Alabama, and then 4 o'clock the tip-off against the Troy Trojans coming into Hanner Fieldhouse. But Wednesday, National Signing Day, again, a special edition of Hail Southern Live from the Gene Bishop Fieldhouse. Going to have a meet and greet with all the Georgia Southern football coaches and staff. Doors open at 5:30 over at Bishop. Our program begins at 6. It'll run from 6 until 7:30. Get a little bit of meet and greet and mingle afterwards. And then it's time. Well, I guess at that point you would have already met the newest editions of Eagle football. But
Well, it also depends on show-wise, player-wise, who we're going to be able to speak to.
that's true. Everybody will be around, so you can get to see them, talk to them, hang out there.
And I know they've been working towards getting that spring ball schedule together. It's going to be a little bit later this year. I do know that. Typically, it's been sometime around late February towards early March. I think it might get just a little bit later than that, but all those details will be coming out over the next few weeks as we work our way through spring, with evening with the All-Stars on Friday, 2 weeks out from first pitch up at Tennessee, so we get a chance to get deeply involved with all 3 of our major sports over the next few days.
Getting ramped up, ready to kick it into high gear over the next couple weeks.
Definitely looking forward to not just Wednesday, just not Friday, just not this weekend of basketball, but also 2 weeks from now up at Lindsey Nelson Stadium against a team that was in the College World Series last year, top 25 again this year. They've got possibly a first-round pick and Jordan Beck in the outfield. That's going to be something to see.
Yep. It definitely is. But first things first, 3 games for Georgia Southern basketball coming up this week. Men's basketball against South Alabama on Thursday, and then a double dip. Women's basketball against Georgia State at 1, 4 o'clock the tip-off for men's basketball against Troy, and you can hear it all right here on the Georgia Southern Sports Network. Until this weekend, for the voice of the Eagles, Danny Reed, this is Colin Lacy saying so long, everybody.
You've been listening to Inside Eagle Nation, powered by Learfield, the official podcast of Georgia Southern Athletics.